Bienvenidos, Ricardo here, and welcome to Ricardo's Forgotten Books. Today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of September. So if you want to know which books I read and how did I rank them, keep watching the video. Okay, September was a great reading month. I have had one of the worst reading blocks of my life. I read my last book in January, I believe, and I did not touch a single book until September. So that on its own is great. I finally read something, but not only that, but I read 7 books, which to me, for me, is great because usually a good or average reading month for me is about 4 books. I am not a fast reader no matter how hard I try. I am a slow reader. And so the fact that I read 7 books is amazing. Now, quantity wise has been a great month. Quality wise, not so much. It's not been my most horrible month, but definitely not one that I'm super happy about. Anyway, I'm going to rank these books from worst to best. I like to start with the books that I gave the lowest ratings to. That way we get rid of the negative at the beginning of the video, and I end up with the highest rated books to end up in a positive note. So with that being said, let's start. The first book that I want to talk about has to be one of the most disappointing reads I have ever done, and it is Madame Doubtfire by Anne Fine. Mid-September, I had already read a couple of books that I wanted to read, so I decided to do a TBR, I guess we could say, with a series of prompts that I put in a wheel, and one of the prompts was a children's book. I love children's book. I love children's literature. I think it's so cute and fun and perfect to just not think too much, especially between books that are high stake or that have a lot of psychology behind them, or they make you think a lot. I find that children's books still make you think, still have those hidden meanings and are hidden gems, but because of the style of the writers and the prompts, is not as heavy as adult books. So I love reading them from time to time. And for the longest, I wanted to read Madame Doubtfire. I remember watching this movie when I was a little kid and loving it. I don't know if it's the fact that the recollection I have of the movie is completely wrong, or if the movie did things or omitted things that are present in the book, because the book that I read and the movie that I remember are two completely different things. In this book, we follow Daniel. Daniel is a father of 3 who recently got divorced from his wife, the children's mother. And from the beginning, we see that the mother and the father have kind of like a war on the amount of time Daniel gets to spend with his kids. Apparently, the mother isn't thrilled about Daniel's living conditions. She thinks he doesn't clean as often as he should. He doesn't approve of his lifestyle because he's an actor, and And yeah, she isn't too thrilled about her kids spending time with their father. And Daniel, on the other hand, think that his ex-wife is too stuck up, doesn't spend enough time with the kids, and the kids could use a more chill, relaxed environment. These are probably the worst parents I have ever read in any book. Um, this book was crazy, and I just don't have any other words to describe it. I think this book is perfect if you are about to become a parent and you want a step by step on what not to do to your kids. Because this book was shocking. The plot evolves when Daniel's ex-wife is looking for a nanny slash chef slash cleaning lady, and Daniel has the idea of dressing himself as a woman and applying for the position to spend time with his kids. We are going to give the benefit of the doubt for plot related purposes to the fact that the wife does not recognize her husband or her ex-husband dressed as an old lady, and she thinks that it's completely believable that disguise. But anyway, in that moment the book starts to go apeshit, like wild. I'm sorry, but it just, I don't have words to describe this. Daniel picks one of his kids by the neck. Uh, he imagines and relishes himself in the fantasies of unaliving his ex-wife. And not only that, but he acts these fantasies out, mimicking it in front of the kids. And the kids have to beg him to stop. On the other side, the mother is doesn't spend time with the kids, is a mother that is clearly not very loving, which that on its own is not necessarily the worst thing. um, there are affectionate people and people who just don't show affection. But there's a moment where Daniel finds a job as a nude model in a painting class, and his ex-wife's neighbor happens to be in that class. So she paints him naked, shows the portrait to the mother of the kids, and the mother of the kids decides to show the painting to the kids, exposing their naked father to them. She keeps trash talking him in front of the kids all the time, and he does the same thing. Like, they are the only thing why I think Daniel is a worse parent is because he actually put his hands on one of the kids. Other than that, I think they're both terrible parents. The only thing that I liked, if I could say that word, because I don't even think that I really liked anything about the book, but the kids were somewhat interesting and engaging to the story. They weren't really developed much, but I mean, hey, if I had to choose between the kids and the parents, like, the kids were way more entertaining because those parents, oh my god. And something that pissed me off was at the end of the book, they don't get back together, but they become friends. Like, hey, we should be cool because we have kids in common. Oh yeah, it's true, we have kids in common. Let's be friends, and they become friends. Horrible book. Would not recommend this book to anybody. Moving on. The next book that I have, or that I want to talk about, is La Traductora de Toledo by Pilar. Oh, I don't remember the name. I had such high expectations for this book because it sounds so interesting. This book is a Spanish book. It has not been translated into English, but let me tell you, you don't want this translated. The rough translation of the title would be The Translator of Toledo, and this book is about Amira, the daughter of a translator in the 12th or 13th century in Spain. Spain during the 13th century, and well, prior to that, for a really, really long time, Spain was divided between Christians and Muslims. Castile was the Christian kingdom, I guess we could say, and Al-Andalus was the Muslim land. But it was roughly north and south, basically, of Spain. If you divided Spain in two, up Castile, down Al-Andalus. And yeah, she is the daughter of a translator in this moment of history where the Christian and the Muslims are going at it because both of them want the country. At the same time, the Christians or the Castilians want to get rid of the Latin and want to start using Castilian, Spanish, the Spanish language in the official documents and all of that. So Amira's father is working it. Like he's, eating basically. But suddenly something happens to Amira's father that will take him out of the translating business for some time. And while he takes care of that thing that happens to him, he is expected to deliver at work. Like he doesn't tell people what's going on. Only his family knows, and the people that he works with, the rest of the people that is around him, don't know that he is not able to work at that moment. So Amira, being a great reader, a great translator on her own right, decides to take the lead and take her father's position undercover and turn or submit her works, her translations, under the name of his father. Now, this sounds super interesting. When I read the plot of the book, I was like, okay, this is a woman in the 13th century in a divided Spain, in a society ruled by men, in a country that is divided into two kingdoms that are both ruled by men, two cultures ruled by men, two religions ruled by men, in a field translation that was at the time ruled by men. And she is a woman that is going to have to work undercover under her father's name. This is going to be so interesting. This was the most boring book I've read in quite a while. My biggest issue is that this book had zero plot. Nothing happened. Yeah, she took over her father's job. Yeah, something happened to her father, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. I think the author used this book to showcase what she knew about the 13th century, which I have to say, for the most part, is very well documented. But there are some things that I'm like, you are making that up. For example, Amira being, I don't know what age she is in the book because I believe they never told us. But I would assume by the end of the book, she is a teenager. A teenager in the 13th century, that doesn't work. Is not married. Like, it's not realistic. it's not realistic. um I think that could have been a good tension point or moment of interest, you know, her parents trying to marry her to another man, and or to a stranger, and her not wanting to do so and wanting to pursue translation. I think could have been great. Her facing the men around her to pursue the career in translation could have been great too. But there's no, Amira is a girl because the author decided that she was a girl. Nothing in this book uh, makes a apparent the struggles that a woman, a young girl, would have gone through during this time to get into to work. And it's just not realistic, because during Al-Andalus, women, especially in the Andalusian part, some for the longest time were not allowed to leave their homes until they were going to the public bathhouses or the market, to the street market, to buy produce. Other than that, they stayed at the house. Amira's mother, they are out here just living life, which I love, but it's not realistic. It simply is not. And yeah, it's like her, Amira, and her best friend, who is a boy, they have the same struggles in the book. Like, I don't always want women to struggle in books. I think that's a tired plot. Women can be much more than the victim in every book that they're in. But when you are giving me a historical fiction that is supposed to be truthful to real history, sadly, women have struggled. Women have been the victims. Women went through a lot of stuff. So you giving me a female character that is only female because her name is Amira, and you say multiple times that she's a girl, but faces no struggle, no problems, no opposition, anything, something, nothing. Like, she is like, no, it just, her gender is not a problem. I'm sorry, like, no, it just, it's not believable. And it's not only that it's not believable, but that because of the author not giving importance to Amira's gender, she misses so many opportunities to make a good plot, because this book has no plot, nothing. There's something that happens to the father that is not even, I mean, how can I put this in good words? Amir is the main character. You don't care about the father. And the biggest issue is her father's problem. It just doesn't make sense. As a historical book, I mean, I read a lot about this period of time. I went to college for arts history on my own, in a non-professional way. I have studied a lot of history, so I knew this already. And this is one of, I think, in Spain for us here, this is one of the most famous pieces of history, because it was really, really apparent, the division in Spain. And a lot of our current culture comes from Al-Andalus and the Muslim influence that the Arabic civilization, I guess we could say, or kingdom, left in the country when they were conquered. You know, that I think is maybe good for beginners if you don't know anything about Spain or this time period, and you think it sounds interesting, which it truly is. Like, the real history is really, really interesting. This could be a good starting point, but like, there are many other books out there that are way more interesting and engaging than this one. Like I would not even recommend this if you want to learn history about Spain, because while the history is truthful except for the part of um how the author portrays women in the book, the rest is pretty faithful. It just doesn't add much. The author focused a lot on the small details, and when you're writing a historical fiction book, I think you should prioritize the overall political climate and the conflicts and all of that, instead of focusing if the threads of a pattern were golden or red and the scriptures and this and that. It's not, no. Overall, do not recommend this book. The next books that I want to talk about are three books, and they are books number 4, 5, and 6 in the Blackwater series by Michael McDowell. This was the second half of the series. I read numbers 1, 2, and 3 at the end of last year, and this year I have decided to finish the series, which is an accomplishment for me because I'm not a huge series fan. I enjoy way better a standalone book that doesn't have like a lot of um, parts to it. But this series was really interesting. I cannot go into detail too much because I would be spoiling the other three books. But I have to say that my favorite, I think, is still book number 3, I think. In this series, the story takes place in a small town in Florida, I believe, which is called Lost. I assume this is a fictional place. Or, I mean, Lost was in Spanish. I don't know if in English it would have the same translation. But yeah, this is a very small town. It's in the between the late 19th century and the early 20th century, and this is a family saga. So we follow a family, different generations of family members throughout several decades, and the book starts with a flood. There are two rivers. The one called uh, Blackwater and the other one called Lost. There are abundant rains and that year, and the rivers overflow and basically cover with water the entire town. And our main character, or one of the members of the family, Kasky, is paddling around town trying to search for survivors or goods that have not been too damaged, when he sees a young woman in a hotel. When they talk, she says that she just arrived to town because she was going to start working there, and the day she comes, like everything starts getting covered in water and ruined and stuff. So he decides to help her, and this will start a, a story of decades in this universe and with this family. This was so fun to read because you really love the characters but at the same time hate them. These books have a slight, squeeze of uh supernatural, or yeah, I would say supernatural element to it, which is not too heavy. It's way heavier in the first book, and then it kind of like is still present but it's more toned down. And the third book to me was my favorite. I have to say the fourth book is my least favorite out of the 6, just because in the third book something happens that is like the main plot for those first 3 books ends in the third book, and it's natural. Like if it would have continued, it wouldn't have made sense. So it was only natural for it to finish in the third book. But you could tell that in the fourth book there was something missing in the plot, and I think in the fifth and sixth book, the author fixed that. But in the fourth book was like, so yeah, I gave the fourth book 3 stars and the other 2 books 4 stars. And I wouldn't really recommend this series because the books are really short, are really small, and they just are an easy, fun, engaging read. The next book that I want to talk about, the second to last book on this list, is Mirror Mirror, a retelling of Snow White. This was published and distributed by Disney, and I am the biggest Snow White fan. It the 30s, the 1930s movie is still my favorite, my all-time favorite movie, animated or not. I am obsessed with the story. If I find something Snow White related, I'm buying it. If I come across an adaptation, a retelling, I am, diving into the story. I have even watched a Spanish retelling of Snow White, or adaptation of Snow White, where the movie was in the 2010s. It was in black and white. It was a silent movie, and Snow White was a bull fighter. And I still ate that up, like it was the most normal thing, to do. I just love Snow White. So when I saw this book, I was like, okay, I have to read this book. I have to say, I gave this 4 stars, and I'm fully aware that it's only because of nostalgia. I am fully aware. I was reading this book and I was picturing the animated movie, and I was enjoying it. I loved reading this book. I had such a great experience. But as a retelling, it leaves a lot to be desired. I'm not an objective person with my ratings. Like, I just rate books how I feel them and how I enjoy them. And I can recognize that I've given something 4 stars, but in reality, it's not very good. I can totally recognize that. And in this case, that's what's happening. This has to be the most unlikable Snow White I have witnessed. I have not watched the most recent movie because I don't need uh, Gal Gadot on my screen, but I have not watched, and the Snow White actress, I don't know, I don't vibe with her either, so I have not watched that adaptation. I will watch it eventually, but this is the most unlikable Snow White I have experienced in forever, I believe. And then it's technically a retelling of the evil queen, but when you give me a backstory for an evil character, Ricardo, I expect some redeeming qualities. Not necessarily a redemption arc. Like, I don't expect this evil villain to, suddenly be an angel, a piece of uh, cloud, a feather in this world. Like, I don't expect them to be holy water, but I expect them to be like, okay, you are evil as, but I don't know how I would behave in your situation. That's what I expect from a villain's retelling. In this case, they made the evil queen more evil, but in a not really interesting way. It was evil for the sake of being evil. Like, there wasn't a reason. That's what I look for in a villain's retelling. I look for a reason to, why did she turn evil? Clearly because she's crazy. But what made her crazy? What made her go crazy? That's what I expect in villain retellings. In this case, she just was a bad person. She just was a villain because she was, period. There's no explanation to it. But there's something so interesting about this book, and is that the mirror takes more of a main character um, space. Like, it's not only the prop of the evil queen, it's a third main character, you know, and I really love it. And I love the relationship between the evil queen and the mirror. Really, really reminded me of Gollum and the Ring in the Lord of the Rings series. So yeah, it was really interesting. I wish the author would have explored that relationship more and give us explanations on how it was working and why it was developing the way it was developing. Um, but yeah, I am fully aware that I gave this 4 stars based on nostalgia and nothing else. Um, Apart from nostalgia, I still think it's a pretty, like, you know, cool read if you don't know what to read and you have a free afternoon, and you're like, okay, I'm going to read something unserious and something that is easy to read. I think this book would be great for that, but I know I enjoyed it a lot. And the last book that I want to talk about is the only book this month that has gotten 5 stars, and I'm still debating on the rating because I like the way I rate books. I just, whatever I feel when I turn the last page is what I rate the book, because I feel that's where my feelings are the most raw and exposed, so I can be like, you know, this book wrecked me. 5 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, whatever. But this month I have made so many changes, so I think I want to be more serious with my ratings and more like strict with them and with the books that I read. But also at the same time, this book made me feel so good and sad and all the feelings together that I could not help but give it 5 stars. For those of you who don't know, this is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. We basically follow the myth of Achilles and the Trojan War and his companionship, I guess we could say, with Patroclus. This book was, it was just nice. You know, it was a nice read. Did it blow my mind? No. But it's a book that I enjoyed in the moment and that it made me feel a lot of things, especially the ending. I had a pit in my stomach. Like, I could almost not breathe, you know? So I appreciate the book for what it did. I appreciate the book for what made me feel. But yeah, it's a book that has made me consider being more strict with my ratings, because I'm like, does it really deserve a 5 star rating? Like, I don't know. And we finally reached the end of the video. Again, September, even though the quality, well, I don't want to say the quality because it's not that these books are bad, except Madame Doubtfire and the Spanish one. Uh, it's not that they are bad, it's just the experience that I had with the books. Like, it wasn't the most successful reading month for me, but at the same time, I went from 0 books in, you know, 8 months to 7 books in 1 month. I'd rather think that this was a great reading month for the amount of books that I read than, you know, judging it just because I didn't vibe with a couple of the books. I think it's a huge accomplishment to make it out of a huge reading slump and read 7 books. So I'm patting myself on the back for that, and just crossing my fingers to better reads next month and, you know, for the rest of my life. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you've read any of these books, if you had have any recommendations based on these books, please let me know. Give me your opinion. Tell me if you've read any of these and you agree with me or not. And that's all. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.